How you doing today, folks? And welcome to Red Wolf EDC. So, I had a video that was scheduled to release, I believe it was this morning. That video is kind of already going a little crazy. Already gotten some fairly intense messages, which is par for the course for the community. But I wanted to address something else, right? Now, Greg Medford just released another video. I believe it was last night, remember correctly. I watched it last night, but I don't know about anything else. And I watched it because a buddy of mine who had purchased a OTF from him was just really just going off. We had a conversation for like, I don't know, about an hour and a half or whatever on the phone, and just absolutely pissed. And I wanted to understand exactly what was going on and why, so I popped it on. And dude, I don't understand how you guys are able to support this man. I truly don't. If you did not watch that video, right, this shit keeps getting worse. First and foremost, one thing I've always kind of respected about Greg is that if you were on his team, meaning you actually purchased his products, you were a fan of his products, that at the very least, like, he had your back. The guy will ride for you. I appreciate that, if nothing else, right? I respect that, if nothing else. But now, if you were one of the first people to purchase this new design, you're just basically getting gaslit. So, semi long story short, a couple of years ago, I think is what I was told, but it could be a year, 6 months. I don't necessarily know. Greg Medford had released an OTF or whatever where you could like pre-order it. How long it was supposed to take was delayed. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, whenever you're dealing with a pre-release product, shit just happens. It's just part of that whole process. You know, things don't always go according to plan. Things don't always go according to schedule. But when the knives actually did ship, they had some pretty severe problems. I did handle one, and I thought it felt really kind of cheap. It's not. I know this type of work goes into things like this, so it's not definitely a cheap knife, but it just something about it just felt almost like dime store, which is crazy because it's not a dime store product at all. But people had problems with it. Like, hey, look, dude, this isn't what you promised. Which, to be fair, it's not. And Greg hops on this live stream, right? And he proceeds to gaslight everyone who purchased his products, which is just, frankly, really not okay. But beyond that, right, he openly admits to knowing that these parts had problems, to openly admit that things weren't perfect, but that he's not going to just throw away the bad parts because that's expensive. Like, I paid $1 million for this OTF, for this design, yada, right? Okay. And he talks about something called a proof strike, which, you know, is not uncommon. You know, they have proof runs, they have alphas, they have betas, they have a bunch of different types of stuff like that, right? Where you're dealing with kind of the various stages of a product. And one of the bigger issues is that you don't sell kind of the things on the drawing board to the consumer. You have to have a fully functional product. Maybe the fit will change, maybe the finish will change, maybe little things here and there might be tweaked. But if you know you have pieces that are fundamentally flawed and poorly designed, and that you're going to alter them to make them better in the future, that's not a proof run. That's still an alpha, or that's still a beta, or that's still just an unfinished product. You don't sell a proof run, which means a proof of concept, or a proof strike in this case, without actually really having the concept down, without having things being fully functional. And from what I've seen, like, these knives have some pretty severe problems. All OTFs have blade play, it's just the nature of the beast, except for the trays coming out and the deadlock, which are two very expensive knives, from what I understand. I've owned the deadlock before, great knife. The tray is coming out, handle it at it was SHOT Show, if I remember correctly. But really cool knife. But they all have blade play. The This knife has more blade play than usual. It has a really janky freaking button. It has a lot of different things that people are talking about and just kind of rallying against. And Greg's response is that, well, these pieces are cheap, and yeah, I sold some extra at Blade Show, but I needed to recoup some funds, and I'm not going to just throw the pieces away. If something is not finished, you don't just slap all the Frankenstein parts together and then go sell it, at least as a new product. You'd be like, hey, look, this is a beta. This is something that is not finished. This is not a finished design by any stretch of the imagination. This has problems. This is a scratch and dent bin or a, all the different types of stuff of that nature, right? To where things are like having a little bit of damage to them from manufacturing processes. You be honest. You have disclosure about things of that nature. But this man had none of that. And then when people have problems with it, inevitably, it's, oh, leave the community. Oh, Medford aficionados, which is like one of his groups, is just full of a bunch of cucks and cunts, I believe were his exact words. It's really just extraordinarily shady. Now, to be clear, I didn't buy one of these OTS. I don't buy anything from Greg, period. I just buy things off secondary market sometimes and modify them. But this is who Greg is. And it's honestly unfortunate because back in the day, Greg wouldn't have done things like this. Greg has always had his issues. Greg has always been a certain way. But to just make excuses like this, man, and to just kind of fuck over your customer is really kind of a new low. Like, it goes beyond the whole racist bullshit I've talked about before. And it starts to become genuinely like really, really shady. So if you are one of the people that believe in this man, that support this man, that are willing to put your money where your mouth is, he's gonna fuck you over. That's so bad. Like, that's so ridiculous. Greg also has what I would call a God complex. Basically, he thinks he is balding, or let's face it here, bald, Jesus. And that's kind of a problem, right? Because everyone talks about freedom, or he talks about freedom, and people who's rallying right now in the comment section of my video or whatever, they're saying to talk about freedom, yada, yada, yada. Greg doesn't pull punches. Greg only pulls punches. He doesn't say what he truly means, and when he does, he censors himself and then goes off on some other type of thing, or then lies about it later. There's a history of this. It's a pretty big thing. But why I say he has a God complex is because what I'm doing right now, what Dirk did, what Nick did, many other people over the years have done, right, is they're doing the exact same thing Greg did. They're exercising freedom of speech. Now, Greg called me a couple different names, soulless, ginger, fuck, and some other things as well of that nature. And he's done it before in the past, and I don't care. I'm not going to rally and be like, oh, I'm angry, Greg, raw. I don't give a shit. Like, you're entitled to your opinion. People who comment on this video calling me an idiot right now, I'm sure. Like, you're entitled to your opinion. And at the end of the day, like, I don't know most of you guys personally. I know some of you guys for sure, but a lot of you guys who comment stuff like that, I don't know you. You have no bearing on my life. So, like, I don't care. Like, you can have your opinion. It doesn't bother me at all. Greg, on the other hand, will get all pissed off. Will get, kind of all up in arms and do everything else. It's very much a cult leader, kind of like God complex mentality. Like, follow me to the letter at all times, or fuck you, you cunt. Which is okay and understandable to a certain extent, except for when you get to the point to where even if you do follow him, and even if you do love his commentary, and even if you do love his designs and everything else, he's still going to fuck you over. People who paid for this knife, say a year ago, I believe it's longer than that, let's just say a year ago for argument's sake, right? They don't have that knife yet. A lot of them don't, actually. There's only 200 of the actual proof strike runs of these knives, and nowhere near 200 people have it. But you can sell them at Blade Show. So the people that really invested their time, their money, their faith, and their loyalty in you as a person and as a brand, you're going to, just sell out from under them? Because if you're saying, right, that like, oh, well, the original 200 aren't made yet. How does that make any sense? The only difference between the ones that are in full production and the ones that are in the 200 range or whatever, you've already said just have like that milling pattern on it, and then also have, you know, some inferior quality control because you just couldn't be bothered to eat the cost. If you're in business, man, eating the cost is kind of part of the business. Most products are not profitable for the first year or so, a couple of years more often than not. And then even still, it's a slippery slope, and some products are just never profitable. It's just kind of one of the risks. So this is not going to be a long video. The last one I recorded was 24 minutes long. That's too goddamn long. To be fair, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning after Blade Show, and I'm just kind of rambling. This wants to be a little more kind of precise to the point. But again, even if you follow Greg, and if you love all of his rhetoric, and if you love all of his commentary, and if you were all about the brand and support him, he's going to fuck you over. That, to me, is like the most damning thing, and that is your legacy, Greg. I named that video after I watched that stream, because the legacy of Greg Medford is first and foremost lies. It's racism. It's a whole heavy dose of cowardice, because you're going to say all this different types of shit and then never back any of it up. Like, supposedly me and him had a conversation and I backed off. Bro, we never had a conversation. We never talked. You never reached out. I saw you at Blade Show. You didn't say anything. This time, in the past, you've just said hi, been polite, and everything else. That's fine. I respect that. I'm the same fucking way. Like, if I'm going to go after somebody, I'm going to be polite and to the point until we actually handle that type of business. But don't say you've handled that business, but have been nothing but polite. It's just lies, and it's cowardice, and it's okay to not want to fight. We're all grown ass men. So to start brawling for no fucking reason is frankly kind of dumb. But don't say you are. Don't say you have all these different opinions. Don't say you're going to do this, that, and the other, and then do nothing. Like, it's crazy to me. But a little off topic. I'm going to cut it here, folks. As always, I love you all. Please take care, and bye-bye.